Hello and welcome to our short eye presentation on a PROACT RCA template on what if our RCA effort is actually not meeting our own expectations. Our problem statement in this case would be that our current RCA efforts are not meeting expectations, and we want to understand and analyze this failure using a methodical and unbiased approach. So how could we go about doing that? Okay, let's start with our event being failure of the RCA effort to meet expectations. Our modes, what is causing this immediately, is going to be the RCA process or system, could be one of the related factors, as well as the RCA process or system expectations related. So let's look at these deeper. How could the RCA process or system itself contribute to it not meeting expectations? We want to be broad and all-inclusive at each step, so we could say it's either methodology related, and/or training related, and/or implementation related. With regards to the methodology, what about the methodology could be contributing to it not meeting expectations? The RCA methodology or methodologies are less than adequate. How could the methodology or methodologies be less than adequate? They lack comprehensiveness. How could they lack comprehensiveness? Their methodology itself is linear in nature. It does not consider simultaneous actions. So perhaps if we're using a 5 whys approach where we have linear logic and we had things happen in parallel, the tool would not be capable of looking at those things happening simultaneously. So that's what we mean by comprehensiveness. Lacks appropriate depth for the consequence of the event at hand. The analysis does not uncover systemic contributions to the event. We may stop short and identify a physical root and replace a piece of equipment, or we may stop short and blame someone for making a bad decision. But we don't delve deep enough into understanding why people made the bad decisions and uncover the systemic contributions to their decision. Lack of flexibility to adapt to the situation at hand. Does the tool itself allow itself to be used for less severe consequences as well as very severe consequences? And then it's up to the analyst as to which capabilities of that tool that they want to use to the greatest extent and to the least. Lacks evidence-based capabilities to prove our conclusions. We don't want a tool that will allow conventional wisdom to fly as fact. Less than adequate knowledge to properly validate hypotheses. Perhaps the people analyzing the particular event don't have the particular knowledge or subject matter expertise to validate whether something is true or not. And perhaps the methodology chosen is less than adequate in the terms of data collection, data storage, and dissemination of the evidence to be able to prove our hypotheses. It's too hard a process to document or follow. Oftentimes, when a particular methodology appears complex and it has a lot of various steps to it, then we just don't have the time when we're living in the moment. So the perception is, this is just too hard to follow. I need something simpler. It takes too much time to follow the steps. Now, this is often a perception as well, because when something is going wrong, and its production is down, it doesn't matter how much time it takes, we have to do it quickly. As opposed to the things that don't have the same urgency, but they are a potential cause to something more significant, the urgency just isn't there today. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on something where I haven't experienced a bad consequence. Too difficult to track the bottom line results to justify the RCA. Oftentimes, that's what RCA is. You know, we're all fighting for corporate dollars, and what we do is that we have to be able to justify that our RCAs are returning money and it's worthwhile to continue and expand our efforts. Okay, so let's go collapse the issues that could be related to methodology. Okay, our methodology that we've chosen could be sound, and then we have a training-related issue. Now we're dealing with the delivery of the methodology. So when we're looking at the delivery of methodology, it can be related to the training quality or the student quality. Let's go look at the training quality. We could say that we can continue that we could have training quality issues because of the methodology at hand. So we say continue at RCA methodology. I could have a good methodology and my training quality be poor, or I could have a not so sound methodology and I be teaching it the way that they told me, but it's still a less than adequate methodology. Okay, so we get back to the instructor. We're assuming that we have a sound methodology and that we have an instructor that's less than adequate. How can that happen? The vendor instructors are inexperienced in the industry where they are teaching. Well, how can that happen? We do poor due diligence by ourselves as the customer in ensuring that whoever is instructing our people, they know what they're talking about in terms of the industry in which they're teaching. The vendor's instructors are inexperienced in the RCA methodology. Perhaps they have new hires and that, we're the guinea pigs in which they're going to be training for their first solo. Again, poor due diligence by the client. Facility trainers inexperienced in the chosen methodology. So perhaps we're using people in-house that are inexperienced with the methodology that they're teaching. Why would that happen? There was a decision not to use a train-the-trainer type of program with the selected vendor. Well, why wouldn't we go with the vendor's train-the-trainer program? There was a decision to save money and try to go it alone. We have people who are well-versed, they're very smart people, but then they get out there and their biases are affecting the way that the chosen methodology is being taught. The vendor train-the-trainer option is less than adequate. Again, poor due diligence by the client. Perhaps the selected vendor's train-the-trainer effort is less than adequate. Okay, so we're going to go back up here, and we had focused on the training quality. Now let's look at the student quality, less than adequate. The students trained actually volunteered for the training. Well, if the students volunteered for the training, then they're likely to be more motivated people who are interested in learning a disciplined approach to getting rid of the problems that they face on a daily basis. So they have incentive, they're driven. As opposed to students who were forced to participate. Students see RCA as another task on their already full plate. They see this as the flavor of the month, and they're just waiting out to how long it will take before we select something else. So this happens often where they're not motivated and they just see this as another task. So when we're selecting students, we should be cognizant of the fact of the people that want to do this and the people that have to do this. Implementation related. How could we have implementation-related issues that would cause the program or the process to be ineffective? Trained students do not implement it properly. How could the trained students not implement it properly? We're going to be going over the expectations, which was one of our modes at the top, so we would continue at expectations. Management systems that are supposed to be in place are not in place. We will continue that as well at another block shortly. Continue at management systems related. We're too busy. Students see RCA as another task on their plate. Again, this is the flavor of the month. I've already got things to do. This is a fad that someone signed a big check for, and now I'm going to pay the price for it. Also, we have reactive work systems. The glory comes from the people who are the clutch performers. They're the people that can go ahead and in a reactive situation, they can get us back up very quickly. Where's the glory with someone who's a good problem solver? Where did I get accolades for preventing something from happening? Reactive work systems. Too much time lapsed from the training to the implementation. I simply forgot. You trained me 6 months ago, and now you're asking me to go ahead when you're ready for rollout to do this. So we're going to look at more of that continue at the management systems related leg. When the logic is all the same, there's no need in repeating the logic in these blocks because it just bloats the tree. So that we can just say, I want to continue with the logic at a predetermined location. Okay, we talked about management systems related. Now let's talk about the management systems with regards to the champion who has been designated to go ahead and roll out this particular system. Okay, how could the champion selection be a part of the overall process not being effective? The executive performance criteria was not effectively communicated to the people who would have to actually do the analyses. Less than adequate time provided to conduct the analysis. So when the people say this is another issue that's been thrown on my plate, and I'm not really a part of this, but I'm now being affected by it, they're saying that in light of all the work that I have to do now, you've given me one more thing. You have not cleared the time out for me to do this. RCA recommendations are not implemented by the system in a timely manner. Therefore, if I conduct a good RCA and I implement a lot of the latent type of root causes that deal with incentive systems or training and things like that, our CMMS type systems are not set up for handling soft type or people type of corrective actions. So if I don't see anything done with my recommendations, I'm not likely to do RCA effectively in the future. The champion does not properly remove the barriers that the analyst sees. It's the champion's job to be their mentor, to oversee that they are effective. So therefore, if they're conducting their analysis and they can't get operations to play ball, or they can't get maintenance to play ball, that's where the champion has to come in. Engineering support for the analyst and the RCAs are less than adequate. I'm trying to figure out whether this bearing is fatigue or overload, and I can't get anybody to help me to make that determination, so I'm just going to wing it. So therefore, I'm flying on conventional wisdom, and I'm not flying on fact. RCA mentoring not readily available for the analyst. Therefore, you want me to follow this process. I'm kind of new to it. I'm green, and I'd like some assistance to give me some confidence that what I'm doing is accurate. But nobody's ever available to help me. Therefore, my perception is if you don't care, I don't care. Okay, so we've looked at the RCA process or being system related. Again, the major components, the methodology, the delivery in terms of training, and then the actual implementation by the analyst. Let's go ahead and look at the RCA process system expectations related. How can they contribute to our RCA process not being effective? No RCA expectations were set from executive management. Well, why wouldn't they set any of these expectations? Well, the entire process was not well thought out, and or the RCA was viewed as a low priority compared to other KPIs that I have on my plate. So in terms of these big processes that I have, this is a lower priority, and we just haven't given it the thought that it needs in order to be successful. RCA expectations were set, but not communicated effectively. Well, how can that be? The RCA champion has not been designated to oversee the RCA process, so there is no champion for the effort. It's just it's paper-based and lip service right now. The RCA system process steps not well thought out by the executive level when they're doing their planning, and there was no step in there to assign this accountability to a champion, then there's a less of a chance that this would succeed anyway. Okay, let's look at the fact that we did designate an RCA champion, and the process and system has still been ineffective. How can that happen? They could be a very well qualified RCA champion and have inadequate management support. They also could have improper selection of the RCA champion. Maybe the person that we chose just wasn't the correct person for this job. Okay, and lastly, we're going to look at RCA expectations viewed as unrealistic by the champions. Okay, executive management made it quite clear what their expectations were, but when we are the ones who are going to go out and do the work, we're saying that this is just far out of line. It's so far out of reach that I'm going to be less motivated to try it because I just can't get there. How can that happen? The champions and the analysts were not involved in setting realistic expectations. Okay, so this is a way of methodically going through, and this doesn't include everything, and it's not intended to. What this is meant is to show a disciplined approach about how to go through and look at non-mechanical, non-electrical, non-process type of issues, and look at administrative type of systems, because we can do RCA on our paper systems. So if we're not meeting a particular goal for some reason, the gap between where we should be and where we are is not being met. Therefore, it's a candidate for root cause analysis. So this is going to conclude our short eye presentation on the failure of our RCA effort to meet expectations. For more information on the PROACT methodology, software, and RCA knowledge management templates, please visit www.reliability.com.